we had another candidate who didn't make it tonight, so we have some extra time, and I was asked if we could have all the candidates come up and answer a question or two. Would you guys like to just throw out a question or two to our candidates? That be okay? I'm not getting much applause on that. You guys don't want to do that? Okay, so, and this is thrown at you guys, so if you don't want to do it, you don't have to come up, but so the question that we were asked is, what are the top 3 problems you intend to fix should you be elected to your position that you're running for? Top 3 problems that you would fix, and obviously, how do you intend to do that? And let's just give each one 2 minutes. Bill?
2 minutes. Okay, I'll go first. Things I've been working on. One of my top issues is recruiting and retaining the best and brightest employees. We have challenges today attracting people to the profession. We have challenges keeping them here. The young deputies can't afford to live in this community on the salary that they earn. They earn a pretty good, decent wage. Most people can't afford to live here. That's why our schools are declining, and we see people moving out of state to greener pastures. So the employee piece is one. Homelessness is another top issue. Even though it's a social issue, law enforcement is the most visible form of government. We get tasked with addressing this problem. It's been something I've been focused on for years now, and will continue to be focused on because our state's policies are contributing to that growing problem. The same thing, drug addiction. We see fentanyl in the communities. Overdose deaths have gone up by 66 people in Ventura County to 289 people that died from drug overdoses last year. It is because we have synthetic fentanyl in the community that's poisoning our youth, and it's something that contributes again to the mental illness we see in the homeless population. It's all kind of interrelated, so I'm very challenged with those things, and I could keep going on for several more of those cards. But I have more time? Okay. Homeless part, mental illness. I think it was Lori who talked about bringing back institutions. I agree.
Yeah.
We half of our inmate population is mentally ill. 14% are seriously mentally ill. These are people that should be institutionalized. They're left unchecked in the community. They end up committing crime. They wind up in jail, and we are responsible for taking care of them. We're the largest mental health facility between Los Angeles and San Luis Obispo, and it is a big societal problem. It's a huge component of our homeless population. It drives a lot of crime in our state. You see it in the metropolitan areas. And those are things that we need to work on. We need to lower the bar for compelled mental illness, and we need to have the capacity to treat those people. So, that's it.
So in the clerk's office, number one issue that I would look to address is the voter rolls. The voter rolls need to be cleaned up. They need to be managed out of Ventura. So what happens is the state has a voter roll database, and we receive that for our mailings. And so what we need to do is pull that back from Sacramento and be able to manage it ourselves. Because if you go far enough upstream and you have bad information that rolls through the whole system, it corrupts the whole thing. The other thing is a chain of custody activities. So this year will be the first year that we will be voting under the new Voter Choice Act. So there is no more precinct voting where you go to your local precinct and vote. You can vote anywhere in the county in these 51 voting centers. It's a big difference, and so we need to have chain of custody really wrapped up tight so that we know things aren't being monkeyed around with. Thirdly, I think we also have a big issue with training. I've had many conversations with different constituents who participated in the polling stations as observers or workers, and there's a big difference between what the policies and protocols say versus what's happening in the field, and that is a failure of the office and the leadership there. So I'm looking to address that as well. So those would be my 3 things. Thank you.
Okay, I could have like 10 things, so I'm gonna have to narrow this down. Okay, as far as the homeless crisis, one thing I think also needs, I've been kind of researching a lot of faith-based organizations. There's an organization in Austin, Texas called Loaves and Fishes. And what they've done is they got state land and they built tiny homes. They have counseling, they grow their own food, they detail cars and work. They pay about $200 a month rent, which they actually get from the state, but it gives them back a sense of self-purpose and hope. So I think that we need to come up with creative ideas working with the private sector. And again, the police stations and the prison should not be a place to house the mentally ill. I have a friend that worked at a jail in LA. She told me with the mentally ill, they'll poop, they'll defecate, they'll smear it on the walls, and the police officers have to clean it up, and it's not okay. Secondly, one thing that I want to really look into is government overreach. I never want to see what happened with these mandates again. I'm really happy to say a lot of the scary bills they were trying to push forward, they didn't get them through. They're kind of going down in flames. These vaccination bills where they wanted to vaccinate our children without our consent. One thing I do want to say about one of the bills that they're still trying to get through, when you're sick, let's say you've got cancer, you are entitled to a second opinion. And COVID has been treated differently. When I hear there's Dr. Malone, who created the mRNA technology, which is the vaccine, have the media say, oh, he's a discredited doctor because he's not going with the state narrative. Right when COVID started, I don't know if anybody saw the WHO's tweet that COVID wasn't spread human to human. There has been so much disinformation, but I'll tell you what, the disinformation's been coming from our media, and it's been coming from the other side. We have the right to have a second opinion, and I've got a red card, so I'm going to pass to Mr. Cole now.
All right, so I'm gonna touch a little bit on what they've touched on. So from the assembly, we really are the person to blame. We are the spot where it's all coming from. The fact that the Sheriff's Department can only enforce the laws on the books. It's one of the things that I would like to do immediately is repeal Prop 47. We need to make crime illegal again here in this state. I definitely encourage you guys to not allow A and B to pass. We need to say here for Ventura County, no on A and B. We need energy independence. Back, we were sitting on billions of gallons of oil right here underneath our feet here in Ventura County. So push and support those sort of things. When it comes to the homeless situation, because I know that that's something that weighs so heavily on everybody's minds. We were having a conversation about this, and you know, every homeless person is there for a different reason and is going to need a different solution to get back to it. It's one of the problems with leaving it in the hands of bureaucrats and politicians up in Sacramento, who aren't the people that are actually putting their hands on people. So how do we empower that? How do we deal with that? So anyone that is one of those people, and I'm sure Sheriff AU would tell you if he's made contact with these sort of individuals, the people that fell on hard times, the people that aren't mentally ill, that aren't addicted to drugs, people with families that are on the street for bad circumstance. I think every single person here in this room would support something to help them out, to get them on their feet, to do the compassionate thing. Problem is that a lot of it's not for those reasons. We have policies in Sacramento that encourage drug use by giving people needles. And now we're going to give them housing. So you give someone a needle and give them privacy, and what you're going to have is a whole lot of families that have loved ones that die with needles paid for with your tax money, needles in their arms. And I don't support that at all. We need to make drug use illegal again. We need to support our law enforcement. The people with mental health issues, we need to support them, and we need to get them into help as well. And then our veterans, sorry, I'll be really, really fast. Our vets need our support when they get off the plane, when they get off the boat, and they get back here stateside. They need somewhere that they can go. They need the community to welcome them. Yeah. The last thing is that we need to start stopping the constant drip. We need to get back into our schools. Our kids need to come out with career paths that will lead them back into being able to be productive citizens here in California, and that's gone away. We need to stop where the homelessness is coming from, not just chase the problem. So that's what I intend to do when I make it.
If he was a hockey player, I was going to tackle him right there. I'm a little nervous there. So the Board of Supervisors touches so much, right? So you have the sheriff over here that needs to put more men on the street, needs more vehicles, He just got a helicopter, so I'm looking forward to that ride. But part of it is the fear of crime is at an all-time high with people that live here, right? You may not be next to somebody who's been robbed or been criminalized, but you fear that crime, right? And we've got to work together. The Board of Supervisors works with the sheriffs very closely to squash that and to really put up a wall between LA County and Ventura County. So when they want to come out here, they know that if they get arrested, they're not going home for a while, that he's going to arrest them and he's going to keep them away. And that's one thing we got to do. The other part, which is not talked about much in Ventura County, is how bad our economy is. Okay, our economy, we've had a minute. What are you talking about? I just started. So, not 19 out of 20 years, we've had net migration loss of people in Ventura County. That means more people leave Ventura County than come in. Okay, over the last since 2010, we've lost $8.8 billion of gross domestic product out of Ventura County. A lot of our white collar workers here that need to make $150,000 to afford $1 million home, those jobs have left. So you have people here, but there's no work. And then conversely, you've got a lot of blue collar workers here, but there's not that much manufacturing anywhere because they're leaving as well. So you've got this tax issues that are going on, you've got a very bad economy, you've got housing that's out of control. So the economy definitely has to be looked at. Now, the Board of Supervisors stuff changes every day, right? So Mike Powers just, you know, he's out of the office, right? So one of the important things we have to do is we have to bring on a new CEO, and I hope that the current Board of Supervisors doesn't try to rush somebody in, because they really need to be evaluated very carefully, that they can handle big city issues, which is what we have here. Oh, you put it down so I got more time? No, okay. So anyway, that's my time. Thanks.
Thank you, Tim. So first, this is going to sound kind of common sense, but putting victims' rights first. Let me be clear when I say this. Your California legislature does not care about you if you are a victim of crime. The California legislature right now asks a two-part question. Who did you hurt, and how can I help you? If you are a victim of crime, they do not care. There was legislation that was put before the State Assembly making human trafficking, where amongst other things, children are sold into sexual slavery. To make that a strike. That sounds like a good thing, doesn't it? Yep. It didn't get out of committee. When they did the presentation to the committee, there were legislators there who were stone-faced, did not care. These are your elected officials. Am I already at a minute? Terry's not messing around, folks. So putting victims first. So I've identified two groups that best do that to support. Number one is my frontline DAs. We have a lot of really talented prosecutors in this county, but they don't get the support I believe they need from management to turn them loose to really fight for you. I'd like to do that. Number two is law enforcement. Law enforcement's out there on the front lines every day doing all the dirty work to keep everyone safe, and nobody supports them, so I don't want to do that. Number two, I want to be a microphone. I said two, but I did three. Don't know why I did that. The second one is to be a microphone for you, because one of my biggest complaints is that you don't know what's going on. Well, we can't make change unless we change the politicians in Sacramento. Politicians only respond to pressure. That's why they do everything in secret, right? If nobody's putting pressure on them, then nothing's going to change. So I want to use my office as a microphone to affect that change. Number three is diversity. Terry, I see you, but I'm ignoring you. Number three is diversity. We actually have a very diverse county, and I think the best way to serve that community is to make the office more reflective of the community which we serve. In fact, a large majority of our victims of violent crime are people of color. In fact, in California in 2020, 77% of victims of violent crime throughout the state were either African American or Hispanic. You never hear the state legislatures talk about that because all they care about are criminals. So all that needs to change. Yeah. Thank you.
Boy, I have a list Where do I start? I'm a veterinarian, you know. Healthcare reform is a specialty of mine. I've been working for the last 30 years, healthcare sector. So we're looking at reform in that area. Get rid of Obamacare, right? Yeah, that's a big one. Also, I control the federal funding for law enforcement. So sheriffs, you're going to get refunded. Police department's going to get refunded. We're going to look at tax reform. We're going to even do a drop in taxes once we get in office. And by the way, I want to give you everyone a little bit of hope here. We have congressional, constitutional, conservative Christians throughout the nation that are going to turn Washington red. And we're working together. So what we're doing right now is I'm actually working the homeless crisis. I've been working with the disabled homeless veterans right in San Vicente. I got them off the street, working with Sheriff Villanueva, put them on the property that we own as veterans. So we're doing it as we speak. In the other things, sustainable energy. None of this green disaster. We'll put an end to that. And getting CRT out of my classroom, getting it out of the military, getting it out of my society. Those are my promises, and I always keep my promises. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we have one more round of applause for all of us? Thank you guys so much. Okay, so this was a really great meeting. Okay, so last call for 50-50. Is anyone? Yeah, you guys can sit down.
We're just
sorry. Yes, you guys can sit down. Oh, we just wanted to stand up there. So 50.
A couple candidates already talked about election integrity and the like. That is one of the responsibilities and why I got into the race. It's a big title, it's a big job, it's actually 3 jobs. A lot of people don't know that it encompasses the clerk's office. So if you've ever had to get a marriage license, death certificate, anything of that nature, you get it through the clerk's office. If you bought property, filed a trust, done anything with easements of that nature, it's done with the recorder's office. And the third, most importantly, is if you voted, that's with the registrar of voters office. So those three things are encompassed in this office. It's a nonpartisan office, as it should be, because really all of us as citizens should care about how our vote, if it's counted, it's not diluted, is it fair? This countywide represents almost 1 million residents and over 500,000 voters in 10 cities. It's also similar to a family Bible in that the office is the repository of the county's history. Because if you didn't have it, who would know that you own that property you bought? Who would know your birth certificate? All these things. It's the repository of the county's history. But it also manages your future because it manages the whole voting process from beginning to end. So it manages voter rolls, it qualifies candidates, measures, and recalls. These petitions over here, if they're Ventura-based, the signatures are approved by this office. It's responsible for our ballots from beginning to end. There's over 50 ballots created in this county for elections. They create them, they distribute them, they manage them, collect them, count them. It hires and trains election workers. That's a seasonal kind of thing every 2 years, but they hire 600 employees for an election. They got to train them, they got to hire them. They have to establish the protocols. They also establish the protocols for what many people I think here do, is they go and observe. You have the right to observe different aspects of the election, and they do that training and establish protocols for that to make sure it's conducted appropriately. So this position is critical. It must be run by a leader who's got the skills and experience to ensure our elections are transparent and unimpeachable. But before I tell you about my qualifications for this, I'd like to say a few words about how I got here, because I've been in here 4 weeks, so it deserves a little explanation. Like many of you, I've looked at our county, our state, and our nation and where it's going and the poor leadership and not been pleased. I've spent a lot of time behind a computer or in front of a TV getting angry and mad, saying, when's somebody going to do something about this? We have patriots like Tim who did. And so over 4 weeks ago, just over 4 weeks ago, 3 elected officials, the assessor, the treasurer, and the county clerk all turned in their retirement papers 3 days before the cutoff. Okay, 3 days before the cutoff. Coincidentally, the successor was identified, all of them, their number 2s, were identified and endorsed. And surprisingly, all their paperwork was ready, all their websites and campaigns ready to go. This was planned. And as a citizen, my wife has been working with this organization, and she had booked the person retiring, Mr. Lund, to appear. And he called up and said, "Not coming, I'm retiring." So my wife said, "Jeff, you can do this job. You you should do it." So we spent 12 hours, not completely talking, but 12-hour span of talking. We said, let's do it. Because we said, we need more integrity from our elected officials. Where's the people's voice in this? I said, enough's enough. I'm tired of the cronyism and anointing of a successor. Officials should not be in the practice of establishing a succession plan for elected officials. Why are voters being left out of this? When you're in a private company, I've worked in private companies my whole life, you always have a succession plan, even at a departmental level, because that's a responsible thing to do in case you leave. But when it's an elected position, it is not your responsibility to develop a succession plan that excludes anybody who's eligible or wants to become a citizen candidate. So that's why I jumped in. One short little story, because they are the gatekeeper to all the election process here. Okay, so when I decided I'm going to run, guess where I had to go? County clerk's office to file. Plunk down my $2,200 to file, non-refundable. There you go. Okay, I'm in, great. Mr. Hargleroad, would you like to file a candidate statement? Well, of course I would, because people need to know me. And it's optional, of course, you don't have to. And I said, well, of course I have to, because when I'm running against the assistant city clerk, they got to know who I am. Well, Mr. Hargleroad, that's a county-wide position, so to get that 250 words in the sample ballot, that would be $6,900. So, yeah, there's different things get expensive, but basically I was in for almost 10 grand just to do it. That's fine, but the point is they're the gatekeepers of so many things that get kicked off, whether it be a petition, whether that be you filing, whether that be the language that's in a petition. And look, some of this is good, because you don't want situations to occur where people are saying things that aren't true. Anyway, I need to fast forward here. I'm on a meet and greet schedule versus a time like this. Anyway, I'm a CPA, 10 years doing public and private audits, 30 years as a senior executive at Universal Pictures, Sony Pictures, and Verizon. Ran worldwide operations, ran the studios, had over 400 employees, $200 million operating budget. I'm also a farmer, 75 acres of citrus and avocados. I work along farmers, the plant, prune, I know the packing houses. It's the third largest industry in this county, and it's enriched my life, and I want this commitment to serve this county. Ballots are a big deal, okay? We got 500,000 going out in 21 days. They should all be treated like cash. They're worth a lot of money. Even if you said they were $100, that's $50 million that would be circulating in the next 21 days. So I'll be your banker, auditor, private sector experienced executive. We'll tighten the screws on this very loose system. And I will not stand for any automation that just processes information, bad information, faster. So I've got a whole number of things I want to do as far as voter rolls. That's really one of the most important things. And Sacramento has pushed a lot of stuff downstream. We can push stuff back upstream with the appropriate working with the Board of Supervisors, etc. So, sorry I'm out of time, but I'm Jeff Hargleroad, running for county clerk and recorder and registrar of voters. Thank you. Yeah.